Is there a justification for caution? That's a common query, and while some may see that as bearish, when looking at this topic in the long term context of this shift of Bitcoin into the bull market, which is what we're preparing for, some caution is justified due to enormous dips, enormous fake outs, nearly always or frequently. When illustrated on an hourly chart, it's not impossible to have an hourly fake out. So let's break down what's going on this chart. I want to put a lot of focus on not just why I believe it's important to exercise some caution, but also underline the need of dissecting the bullish argument for Bitcoin or on hopium enthusiasts. I think there is one chart that we should all be aware of in case Bitcoin does something improbable or inconceivable. In this video, we're going to talk about something that may surprise many of you. But first, let's speak about what's actually possible. After all, that's why everyone should come to me. I'm not here to stir either bullish or bearish feelings. I'm here to monitor the data. I can just sort of focus on the game, not being sucked into the excitement of Bitcoin hourly candles, but realistically. Right. So let's approach this seriously and talk about some pretty crucial milestones to keep an eye on for Bitcoin over the coming 24 to 36 hours. This is a weekly chart since green increases upward as the time frame becomes shorter. The 50-week moving average, which lies roughly between 24 and 200, is where we still fall short. 200-week moving average around 50, $25,300. When we dive in, those regions will be crucial. Even on the 6-hour charts, you can see that Bitcoin was stabilizing on the top trend line, which was in the range of 25,200 to 300. So, on a weekly basis, Bitcoin faces this enormous macro resistance. That's number one, right there at the 200-week moving average. If you've been following my technical analysis, you all are aware that our aim is the 22,000 region in the charts. It is either high or low. I'm not necessarily confident that it won't happen simply based on this one step here. I'd want to discuss why I believe there is a cause for caution. So, the first obvious instance is just the fact that when Bitcoin had this prior swing high and really dropped down below the 20-day moving average, it did for a minute jump about the 20-day moving average before falling to the target. We're kind of in a similar pattern right now, dipping below the 20-day, popping above. There's a case for Bitcoin failing here and dropping to the threshold to that lower trend line. And it's just something I want to assess. It's not anything I'm forecasting, but if we just remain patient, more on the zoomed out version of Bitcoin, not so much the hourly, and get all pumped about what's occurring on the hourly. I believe we gain a greater understanding of the markets and, at the very least, are able to endure them more successfully without the mental pressure, which is why I take these actions. So, moving to the 6-hour, after we go into the 6-hour chart, we're going to focus on that particular chart to make the argument for Bitcoin's potential to rise further and see a beautiful, significant breakthrough. I'll show you what it looks like, but first, take note of these two regions on the 6-hour chart. We just spoke about how Bitcoin appeared to fake out right there at the last swing high before plummeting to the goal. Before reaching the goal, Bitcoin's swing high is somewhat faking out and perhaps coming into play. Now, this is demonstrated in more than just the price chart for the 6-hour that we are looking at. The momentum oscillator is where we go. See this? Bitcoin was experiencing a slight bounce while plummeting. When the Bitcoin was most recently plummeting, there was that fake out, and then it went straight to the target and above. Now, here is our current rebound. We're inside right now, and after that, there will be a fake out like the ones we had the last time, directly into the oversold. On the 6-hour RSI, the transition from overbought to oversold must be completed. I'm simply closely monitoring things. You understand? The rationale for hitting these oversold points on the RSI is in play since we have been in a downtrend on the 6-hour chart. This upward movement is something of a ruse. It is sort of luring in the bulls with their bullish optimism before dropping to our goal, which is the lower trend line in the 22,000 area outside of this ascending triangle. According to the data chart, that is what we are expecting. It appears as though it will just consolidate all the way back down in between all of these moving averages as they all converge together. A pivot into a bull market is exactly what we want to see in a bear market, and this form of consolidation will often last for several weeks or months. But I think it's fine to view it. Let's now discuss the bullish case. Argument in favor of Bitcoin, because we all prefer seeing Bitcoin beat the odds and continue to rise instead of achieving negative objectives. Am I right? It appeals to us all. But first, let's take a look at this chart of the S&P 500, which has the potential to significantly drive that rise. We keep tabs on the stock market. You can notice when the US dollar currency index is decreasing since we have been monitoring it. Right now, as seen by the red candle on the US dollar currency index, Bitcoin risk on the S&P's 500 is beginning to rise. We've got these higher lows kind of in play so far for the day. This upward trend for the S&P 500 has been seen since October of 2022, and we're now sort of testing. Most recently, the closing from last week at the lower trend line is currently rebounding, but will it continue to do so? Will the positive trend continue? If this occurs, the Bitcoin goal to the downside that we have been talking about almost becomes irrelevant because Bitcoin could defy expectations and just wander away from this objective down here. The S&P stock market will likely rise in the very near future. The point is, if the S&P 500 stumbles today, this may be the ideal scenario for Bitcoin to attain its target price of around $22,000. If we should prepare for the possibility of this happening, nonetheless, the US dollar currency index is now doing nothing more than testing this previous barrier. Swing low, then swing high. We watched it closely as it kind of drew near to its lower high Fibonacci. Right here, we've been keeping tabs on the opposition. The 786 kind of fell to the 618 when it emerged from the candle as the 618 approached it. Also, it is now evaluating the 786's disadvantage. So broke out the channel. And now that we're testing that channel, the US dollar currency index may have made a higher bottom if we see support at this Fibonacci level or at these moving averages and the 20-day moving average crosses above the 50-day. We need to exercise caution when dealing with the danger associated with the Bitcoin stock market if the US dollar currency index continues to move in this direction, since it is likely that these prices will drop. Hence, this graphic is the genuine link, and this chart shows the S&P 500 and the stock market's activity in terms of the next objective that will be reached. I would just want to mention that even though I am aware of how unpopular it is, especially when red hourly candles start to appear, yet when we see upward advances that are green, it's not common to talk about downward moves because as soon as we begin to zoom out on the chart, we see that these changes are just hourly and short term in nature. Let's be practical. Let's keep in mind the trend we're in, the potential objectives that are in play, and what can motivate the achievement of those aims. I'm here to accomplish that because I don't like to limit myself to simply these shorter motions. Indeed, it's far too simple to become somewhat dazzled by everything else that's happening in the markets. Now, just to mention, the daily chart is the other item. And I'll conclude by saying that the price action has shown higher highs while the RSI has shown lower highs. This is known as a bearish divergence. Please share your opinion with me, everyone. How did you find going outside? Please click the like and subscribe for me. Each and every one of you is appreciated. God bless, and I'll see you in the future video.